Thank you for tuning into Short Fiction Lab. You're listening to Infinite Survival, Rose Villa Escape Game. This is the second story in a 5-story series. Welcome to the Rose Villa Escape Game. The game will begin in 10 minutes. When I opened my eyes, a mechanical voice echoed beside my ear. But before the sentence could finish, the voice suddenly changed. Warning, warning, player count exceeds limit. Immediate elimination required. An axe smeared with blood and flesh swung toward me at terrifying speed. I had no time to dodge. The cold blade stopped just a few millimeters from my face. Drops of blood clinging to the axe dripped onto the tip of my nose. I could even smell the thick metallic stench. I blinked, said nothing, and didn't step back. A few seconds later, the axe blade spun rapidly and transformed into a doll's head. Its glowing red eyes emitted a faint light as it stared straight into mine. It curled its lips into a grin. Player Evelyn Hart, we meet again. Yes, I replied calmly. We meet again. 3 months ago, while riding the subway, I was accidentally dragged into an escape game. There were more than 100 people on the train, but in the end, I was the only one who survived. I thought I had escaped death, but I never expected to be pulled into another game. This morning, when I opened my eyes, I found myself standing inside a vast villa estate. The villa was surrounded by white roses tinged with pink. They encircled the lawn at the center, forming a wide pathway. At the end of that path stood a 4-story European-style mansion. Even from the outside, it radiated an air of antiquity and luxury. The reddish-brown bricks carried a somber gloom, as if they had absorbed blood over the years and hardened with time. I raised my hand and wiped the blood from the tip of my nose, calmly looking at the doll. Looks like you really want to kill me. The doll laughed louder, its grin stretching all the way to its ears. Just having a little fun with an old friend. It swept its gaze around. I followed its line of sight and realized that besides me, there were 5 other people in the estate. Men and women alike. Among them, 2 men and 1 woman stood separately, seemingly strangers to one another. The remaining 2, a man and a woman dressed in identical sportswear, stood close together, clearly a couple. All of them wore calm expressions. Perhaps like me, they had already survived an escape game before. At that moment, the doll raised its voice. Welcome players to Rose Villa. This round has 5 available slots. However, a system malfunction has been detected. A 6th player has appeared. So before the official game begins, we've added a warm-up round. 5 black invitation cards appeared in midair. Then they dissolved into specks of light and scattered throughout the estate. Game introduction, the doll announced. The master of Rose Villa is hosting a banquet. He asked the butler to prepare 5 invitation cards. However, due to haste, the butler accidentally dropped them. If the guests wish to attend the banquet, they must find the invitations themselves. Game rules. 1. 5 invitation cards are hidden within the villa grounds. Players must find and keep them until the game ends. 2. Each card is valid for only 1 player. Sharing is not allowed. 3. During the game, there are no restrictions on actions. Violent theft is permitted. 4. Time limit, 10 minutes. When time runs out, the invitations become invalid. 5. The search area includes the entire estate grounds, excluding the interior of the villa. 6. When the game ends, only players holding an invitation may enter the official game. Everyone, do your best to find an invitation. Otherwise, enjoy yourselves. The moment the doll finished speaking, a red countdown clock appeared in the sky, displaying 10 minutes. The game began. Time was tight. The other players immediately scattered to search. The couple headed straight into the rose garden. The muscular man, a fat man, and a petite girl with twin ponytails ran around the perimeter of the villa. Only I remained standing still. The estate was enormous, well over 100 acres. Even excluding the villa itself, searching the entire grounds within 10 minutes was impossible. No matter how many people were searching, random exploration would be useless. The invitations had to be hidden in special locations. Just as I reached that conclusion, I saw the muscular man flip over the welcome mat in front of the villa's entrance. He bent down to check underneath, then suddenly raised his right hand high and burst into laughter. I thought this would be hard to find. Turns out it's this easy. An invitation card was in his hand. The game had only just started for 1 minute. The other players froze briefly, then immediately sped up their search. I quickly abandoned the rose garden. It was too vast. Instead, I walked toward the villa and tilted my head up to observe the ancient, mysterious building. I had paid close attention earlier. When the muscular man found his invitation, it retained its original form. That meant the invitations were not disguised as other objects to mislead players. The greatest difficulty of the game lay elsewhere. They were simply hidden extremely well. I carefully searched along the surface of the villa, trying not to miss a single detail between the bricks. Suddenly, my gaze was drawn to a window on the eastern side of the 4th floor. The window was slightly ajar, its curtains lifted and fluttering in the wind. Through the narrow gap, I saw a black card, an invitation. I frowned. There was no ladder. At that height, climbing from the outside was impossible. Just as I was thinking of a way to retrieve it, a petite figure flashed past me. It was the girl with twin ponytails. She stopped directly below the 4th floor window, grabbed the edge of the 1st floor frame with both hands, and leapt upward with force. The ledge was narrow. An ordinary person would struggle to stand steady, but she landed firmly and continued climbing to the 2nd floor without hesitation. I glanced at the countdown clock. She was fast. From the moment she started climbing to retrieving the card and descending floor by floor, she only took 3 minutes. Her body was light, her movements decisive and efficient. She was skilled. Wiping the sweat from her forehead, she walked straight toward me and smiled sweetly, dimples appearing on both cheeks. "You spotted this card first, but I was faster. You're not mad, are you?" I shook my head. Seeing it but being unable to take it was useless. If you had the ability to get it, then it's yours. Her smile widened. She even hooked her arm around mine, her voice so sugary it was almost uncomfortable. "You're so kind. Your name is Evelyn Hart, right? I'm Lydia Vale. There are still 3 cards left. I'll help you find one." I gently withdrew my arm and shifted my gaze past her to the fat man standing beside a street lamp to the right of the villa. He twisted the base of the lamppost, then forced open the electrical box and pulled out the 3rd invitation. The countdown showed only 2 minutes remaining. 2 invitations left. In the rose garden behind us, the couple was still searching. But in the girl's hand, I noticed a corner of black peeking out. The 4th card. They had found it earlier. "Oh no, only one left," Lydia Vale pouted, though her dimples never disappeared. "What should we do? If you don't find it, you'll be killed." I didn't know what she was thinking, but I knew one thing for certain. I wouldn't die, because I already knew where the final invitation was hidden. With 42 seconds left on the clock, the couple began arguing. They moved deeper into the rose garden, farther away from the villa. The boyfriend couldn't find the 5th invitation. Realizing he wouldn't have time to return to the villa and snatch someone else's card, he turned his attention to the invitation in his girlfriend's hand. She couldn't resist him. She burst into tears and cried desperately. "If it weren't for me in the last game, you wouldn't have made it out alive." He shoved her impatiently. "So what? You helped me. Does that mean I owe you my life?" I ignored their argument and walked straight toward the doll, which was still floating in midair. It was wearing a clown hat, comical at first glance, but the hat was the same color as its face, making it easy to overlook. The doll grinned. "Player Evelyn Hart, do you need my assistance?" I raised my hand and touched it. "There's something I've always wondered. In previous escape games, you never appeared at the scene. This invitation-finding game isn't particularly difficult, nor especially suspicious. So why are you here?" My fingers brushed the brim of its hat. The doll's mechanical eyes flickered with surprise. "And if I remember correctly," I continued, "you weren't wearing this hat before the game started, were you?" I suddenly yanked the hat off. An invitation card was stuck to the shiny metallic top of its head. Who would have thought the final invitation would be hidden on the rulemaker itself? The card was pitch black, with dark red handwriting across it. "Dear guest, welcome to Rose Villa." The letters seemed to move, like fresh blood flowing. As soon as I grasped the card, the countdown reached 0. The discarded clown hat hit the ground and transformed into a sickle that shot toward the arguing couple. The girl didn't even have time to finish her scream before the blade severed her head completely. Her boyfriend stepped aside in disgust, afraid the blood would splatter onto him. After the sickle vanished, The young man panted and ran toward the villa doors, rejoining the remaining players. But before he could even catch his breath, the muscular man spat on the ground in disgust. What a shameless bastard. The young man's face turned pale. He wanted to argue, but when he saw the other man's bulging muscles, he lowered his head and stayed silent. At that moment, the villa doors slowly opened. A man in a neatly pressed suit, his hair slicked back, stepped out. Greetings, esteemed guests. I am the butler of Rose Villa, here to welcome you inside. At some point, Lydia Vale had moved to stand beside me. She leaned closer and whispered softly, "Oh my, why does that butler look so ugly?" As she spoke, the young man suddenly collapsed to the ground and began vomiting violently. The muscular man and the fat man also turned deathly pale, their legs trembling uncontrollably. I looked up. In truth, the butler's face was quite ordinary. He had no glowing red eyes, no tentacles protruding from his mouth. The only problem was, his facial features were misplaced. His eyes were positioned on his cheeks. His nose was upside down and stuck to his chin. His ears met symmetrically in the center of his face like a fleshy butterfly. His mouth was on his forehead, lips inverted, and whenever he spoke, saliva dribbled down uncontrollably. But compared to that grotesque sight, what caught my attention more was Lydia Vale. That horrifying appearance had nearly broken the three men. As for me, I was born with emotional deficiency. I felt nothing. But her? Why wasn't she afraid? In fact, I saw a strange excitement shining in her bright eyes. At that moment, the doll floated forward and made a new announcement. Congratulations to the 5 players who have successfully entered the official game. This game consists of 3 rounds and will last 2 days and 1 night. Those who clear all rounds may return home safely. Round 1 Introduction. The 5 guests have received invitations to Rose Villa and feel honored. However, they are poor and cannot afford gifts. Therefore, they have agreed to work for half a day without pay to express their gratitude to the villa's master. Job list. 1. Chef, prepare lunch. 2. Gardener, trim the weeds in the rose garden. 3. Tutor, teach the master's daughter. 4. Maid, clean the storage room. 5. Guard, stand at the gate and prevent intruders. Game rules. 1. The 5 positions are represented by 5 bracelets. Players may freely choose a role. Once worn, the choice is final and cannot be changed. 2. Each position has specific requirements that will be displayed via the bracelet after selection. 3. Working hours, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Players must strictly follow job requirements. Violations, you know the consequences. 5 bracelets appeared in the butler's hands, their corresponding positions displayed on an electronic screen. The role selection began. The fat man stepped forward immediately, grabbed the bracelet labeled chef, and laughed. "I'm a chef by profession. This job suits me perfectly. No objections, right?" Seeing no one respond, he happily put it on. The moment it touched his wrist, it seemed to come alive, clamping tightly onto his skin. It could not be removed. The muscular man then took the guard bracelet, flexing his muscles as if to declare the position uncontested. The surviving boyfriend quickly grabbed the gardener bracelet, casting wary glances at me and Lydia Vale. Perhaps he thought that since he had searched the rose garden earlier, he was familiar with the terrain. "The gardener role suits me best. Why are you looking at me like that? I've already put it on. You can't steal it." He clenched his wrist and shouted aggressively under my gaze. My eyes flickered slightly, the corner of my lips lifting. I looked at him as though I were looking at a dead man. "Nothing. Gardener suits you very well. The villa is called Rose Villa, and there's such a vast rose garden. In an escape game like this, do you think those flowers are safe? I absolutely don't." No incidents occurred during the invitation round. But who's to say that wasn't a trap? Of course, I had no obligation to remind him. "Oh dear, sister, only 2 roles left. You pick first." At some point, Lydia Vale was holding the remaining 2 bracelets, smiling brightly at me. So far, everyone's choices seemed related to their abilities, but they had all subtly avoided one position, tutor. Judging by its nature, it required prolonged interaction with an NPC. It was likely the most dangerous. Lydia Vale was not stupid. While I had been talking to the young man earlier, She could easily have put on a bracelet and left the tutor role for me. So why let me choose first now? Was she trying to curry favor because of the invitation earlier? "I'll take maid," I said without hesitation. Lydia Vale handed me the maid bracelet, but halfway through she stopped, pouting cutely. "But sister, I really don't know how to deal with children. I'm afraid of making the NPC angry and getting killed. You're so kind. You wouldn't let me die, right? Could you give me the maid position instead?" She had an adorably sweet face, large, sparkling doll-like eyes, a small nose, rosy cheeks. Combined with her sugary voice, she naturally triggered protective instincts in others. I reached out and patted her head, smiling just as sweetly. "But whether you live or die, what does that have to do with me?" She froze for a brief second, then lowered her head in disappointment and handed me the remaining bracelet. Except, the maid bracelet was already on her wrist. She lifted her head again, her smile even brighter. "I thought you definitely wouldn't refuse me, so I put it on first. What should we do now?" Not every cute girl is harmless. Sometimes they're monsters. I withdrew my gaze and calmly picked up the tutor bracelet instead. It doesn't matter. For me, either role is fine. After everyone finished choosing, a wave of dizziness swept over me. I found myself standing inside the villa's reading room. 3 walls were lined with towering walnut bookshelves packed tightly with children's books. A little girl stood in front of me. She had long, soft hair, but her face was unnaturally pale. Her eyes were dark and lifeless, like a corpse that still breathed. "My name is Lily. Shall we begin our lesson?" The room was so quiet that I could clearly hear her swallow. My bracelet vibrated. I looked down. Tutor requirements. 1. The tutor may choose the subject, but should listen to Lily's preferences. 2. Lily has a terrible temper. During class, you must not make her angry. The consequences will be severe. The rules did not require me to do anything inherently dangerous, which meant the threat in this round was the NPC standing before me. I turned off the bracelet display and recalled Lydia Vale's sweet smile. Then I mirrored it, smiling just as sweetly at Lily. "Oh my, meeting your teacher without saying hello? That doesn't sound like the well-behaved girl the butler described." The rules said not to anger her. They did not say I couldn't discipline her. Lily paused, as if about to flare up, but she couldn't find anything in my words that technically violated the rule. Finally, she muttered a reluctant greeting and sat down at the desk. Good. That worked. "What would you like to study today?" I asked, sitting across from her. Her dark eyes suddenly brightened. She grabbed a book, flipped to a page, and pushed it into my hands. "I want to learn this nursery rhyme. Read it to me." The rhyme read, "Lily, Lily, so stubborn and sly, what grows in her garden, oh my? Silver bells and roses in rows, and maids standing neatly in line. Not enough, not enough. Lily frowns, it still lacks a heart." Lily stuck out her wet, sticky tongue and licked her lips. Her voice carried greedy hunger. "Teacher, I want to learn this one. Read it." I looked at the rhyme again. Without doubt, this was the first trap of the round. If I read it, I would likely complete the missing heart. But if I refused her request and angered her, the consequences would be unimaginable. The first round had already reached a deadlock. "Teacher, why are you hesitating? Don't you want to read it to me?" Her voice sharpened. Her teeth seemed slightly longer now, sharper, as if she were ready to eat me. I took a slow breath, closed the book, and set it aside. Instead of answering, I asked, "Lily, where are your parents?" The rules kept mentioning the villa's master, yet he had never appeared. Lily's anger receded instantly. "They're entertaining guests. They went to town to buy new clothes." I caught the emotional shift in her tone. "They went to town, but didn't take you with them? Do they think you're some kind of—" I deliberately dragged out the pause, then softly finished. "A foolish child?" Her face went pale. Her expression cracked, fury building. But I spoke again before it could erupt. "Of course I don't think that. I think you're very smart. They must have misunderstood something about you. That's why they treat you that way." "What should I do then?" she asked, face wrinkling like any ordinary disappointed child, assuming one ignored her half-retracted sharp teeth. The corner of my lips lifted. "Well, you must prove yourself. Have you heard of the chicken and rabbit problem?" Just like that, her attention shifted. The dark rhyme was forgotten. For the next stretch of time, I fed her puzzle after puzzle. If chickens and rabbits have 25 heads and 64 legs in total, how many of each are there? What about 16 heads and 44 legs? 35 heads and 94 legs? Eventually, Lily's mind grew dizzy. She burst into tears. I don't want to do this anymore. It's too hard. Her tears were dark red, flowing from her eyes in streaks like writhing worms. I didn't interrupt. The 2-hour work period was almost over. The longer I delayed, the safer I would be. Suddenly, she stopped crying. She glared at me viciously. You did this on purpose. I told you to read the nursery rhyme and you forced me to do math. I sighed and tidied the messy scratch papers. Why would you doubt my intentions? You called me teacher. You should trust me. Downstairs, no one else wanted to choose you. I was the only one who did. Aren't you grateful? I can see that you're a foolish child, but I'm willing to give you a chance. If you listen obediently, I'll help you. Even if your parents abandon you, I won't. I truly hate being doubted, especially by someone I care about. Lily, you've really disappointed me. Her face turned white, then red. She tried to speak several times, but my steady psychological pressure crushed each attempt. Finally, her eyes turned hollow. Teacher, it's my fault. Please don't abandon me. I pretended to hesitate until her anxiety peaked. Fine, you are my student after all. But from now on, you must listen to me. No disobedience, understand? She nodded obediently. I slowly smiled. Picking up the nursery rhyme book, I leaned closer. There's a girl downstairs with twin ponytails. She loves nursery rhymes. If you want to hear it, you can ask her to read it for you later. No matter what Lydia Vale truly was, she tried to harm me, and I always repay in kind. Just as Lily took the book, a clear chime rang in my ear. A system notification appeared. Work hours have ended. Please proceed to the first-floor living room. Lunch will be served in 30 minutes. I left the third-floor reading room and walked down the stairs, observing the villa's interior structure as I went. The first floor was an expansive hall, divided into a reception area and a dining area. Spiral staircases rose on both sides of the hall. Along the walls hung numerous dark and somber paintings. Among them was the infamous, globally banned painting, The Girl in the Rain. Against a blue-black background stood a girl in a black cloak and black hat, its brim sharp as a blade. Her face was gaunt, her chin pointed, her features stretched unnaturally long as though fused with her neck. Endless rain poured down, striking her pale, bloodless skin. It was said that anyone who gazed at this painting would slowly go mad. Those chosen by the girl would be trapped within the canvas forever, becoming part of the painting itself, nourishment for her existence. At that moment, the girl in the painting had her eyes closed, as though they might open at any second. How creepy. I decisively removed the painting and turned it face down against another cursed artwork beside it. Let them torment each other. When I reached the first floor, Lydia Vale ran over immediately. Oh my God, you're okay. That's such a relief. I waited so long and didn't see you. I thought you were dead. I ignored her. Soon, when Lily met her, she would be much happier. Just then, the muscular man appeared at the villa entrance, his expression grim. The guy who tried to kill his girlfriend is dead. Come outside and see. The young man's body lay on the lawn. The flesh had been completely stripped from his bones. The skeleton was smeared with blood. His internal organs looked as though they had been crushed into pulp. Around his severed neck were countless tiny bite marks, as if something small had gnawed his head off. His skull had been split open. The brain inside was completely gone. Nothing remained. It was nearly noon. The sun shone brightly overhead, warm rays spilling down. A gentle breeze carried the fragrance of roses. Yet the red-streaked skeleton lay there like a scythe, slicing open the illusion of serenity and revealing the darkness beneath. Sister, what do you think killed him? Is there a monster in this villa? Lydia Vale narrowed her eyes playfully and stepped closer, curiosity shining in her gaze. I glanced at the rosebush beside the corpse. Compared to the others, its pink hue was deeper, its blossoms more vibrant, as if it had drunk its fill of human blood. In this horror game, it bloomed seductively. On the way back to the villa, the muscular man briefly described his task. In the game's setting, the master of Rose Villa earned money through business. He squeezed profit from everything, even the rose garden. For 10 gold coins, townspeople could visit the villa to admire the garden. The muscular man's role had been to guard the gate and check tickets. Visitors who paid were bathed in golden light. After entering, they would disappear automatically, considered to be touring the garden. Those bathed in red light were intruders trying to sneak in. He had to stop them. If any got through, they would destroy the rose garden, and he would be punished by the villa's master. "So your job was pretty simple," Lydia Vale said with a squinting smile. The muscular man's face turned pale, as if recalling a nightmare. "Simple? Every minute, 100 people tried to rush in for 2 straight hours. If I didn't let legitimate visitors in fast enough, they'd riot and kill me. I didn't know how he survived, but judging from his arm, which he still couldn't lift properly, I could imagine the difficulty. If that task had been assigned to me, I would have died. Compared to that, my role, just a few words to unsettle Lily, had been almost merciful." "And you?" I asked, looking at Lydia Vale as she hummed cheerfully while walking. "What was your task?" "Oh, you finally care about me?" She stopped and smiled brightly. "I've been waiting for you to ask. My job was simple. Just sweep the storage room. Only the dust there is shaped like tiny hands. If it touches your skin, it eats away at your flesh. But don't worry, I didn't touch any." There wasn't a trace of fear in her voice, only boredom. I didn't expect it to be so dull. I was hoping for something more exciting. Her eyes, seemingly sweet, were in truth cold. Her tone indifferent to life itself. The smile on her face felt programmed, unchanging from beginning to end. Under the sunlight, she seemed to blend with the rose garden behind her, like another beautiful carnivorous flower. At that moment, a new game announcement sounded in my ear. "Guests are requested to proceed to the dining room. The master of Rose Villa has prepared premium ingredients personally crafted by our talented chef. Every dish is guaranteed to be delicious. Please enjoy yourselves. A special reminder, the master despises waste. You must finish your food. If you displease the master, the consequences may be severe." In the dining room, a long white table was covered with dishes. Several candles stood in the center, their flickering light making the food appear even more enticing. The fat chef had already taken his seat. His eyes were dull as he stared blankly at the food in front of him. As I approached, I noticed his entire body was trembling. His hands kept rubbing against his clothes as if something filthy were stuck to them. But there was nothing there. "What's wrong with you?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. Lunch might not be the main part of the game, but since it involved the villa's master, it was important. The system hadn't specified whether this was an individual or group task. If it was collective, I wouldn't allow him to drag me down. After a long pause, the chef slowly lifted his head and muttered, these dishes. Before he could finish, the butler appeared out of nowhere, smiling. He was definitely smiling. Though his distorted face made the expression hard to read, the tone of his voice carried unmistakable delight. "Dear guests, please take your seats. This lunch has been specially prepared by the master to thank you for your hard work this morning. Allow me to introduce the dishes. All ingredients were freshly slaughtered today to ensure maximum freshness. The chef has skillfully used different parts to create stir-fried brain, spicy intestines, crispy ribs, braised trotters, and sweet and sour ribs." At that, the muscular man swallowed loudly and pulled out a chair, shooting the chef a contemptuous glance. "These are normal dishes, aren't they? The way you were acting, I thought we'd be eating something horrifying." The chef's face grew even paler. Before he could speak, the muscular man turned to the butler. "I'm starving. Can I start eating?" "Of course. You are our guest. Your comfort is our priority." The moment the butler finished speaking, the muscular man grabbed his chopsticks and began eating enthusiastically. He looked satisfied. The chef truly was skilled. Then the butler paused. "Oh, I forgot to mention what the ingredients are." The lips on his forehead stretched sideways into a twisted, ghastly smile. "The ingredients come from players who failed the invitation round. Having lost their status as guests, they were naturally repurposed as ingredients for you to enjoy." The muscular man gagged violently and vomited everything he had just swallowed. The butler's voice turned icy. "Sir, This meal was painstakingly prepared by the master. You must not waste it. Finish your food. Otherwise, the master will be displeased, and I am authorized to deal with you." As he spoke, black smoke drifted from his ears. Looking closely, it wasn't smoke. It was countless tiny, writhing tentacles, eager for food. He didn't specify the punishment for wasting food. He didn't need to. The muscular man forced himself to swallow again, suppressing his nausea. Lydia Vale calmly pulled out a chair and sat down. She scooped up a spoonful of stir-fried brain and put it into her mouth. Perfectly cooked, brain really is the best. The muscular man stared at her in horror. She ignored him and turned to me with a bright smile. "Sister, what will you choose? Are you going to eat?" She licked the corner of her mouth, as if savoring the lingering taste. The butler's eyes fixed on me. The black tendrils from his ears coiled violently, ready to pounce. Everyone was waiting for my decision. At that moment, Lily approached timidly and glanced at me. "Teacher, I want to eat lunch with everyone." It seemed that although the first round had ended, my tutor role still lingered in her mind. More importantly, she was still under my psychological manipulation. The corner of my lips lifted. "Ma'am, you cannot do that. You must personally finish your own portion." I didn't even look at him. I kept my gaze locked on Lily, increasing the pressure. "Will you help your teacher eat this?" Lily looked at the dishes, swallowed carefully, and nodded. "That violates the rules," the butler insisted. "Oh?" I replied lightly. "I thought Lily was also one of the villa's masters. Aren't you her servant?" Though I spoke to the butler, my eyes remained fixed on Lily, my tone laced with subtle doubt and disappointment. Lily swayed slightly. Her pale face suddenly twisted in anger. "I want to eat it for teacher, so I will. My parents told you to stay and take care of me. You don't have the right to interfere." The butler seemed surprised. After a few seconds of silence, he relented. "If this is Miss Lily's wish, I have no objection." I exhaled quietly. If I couldn't use Lily as a shield, I would have to eat that food. No matter how beautifully seasoned or artfully prepared, it was still a dismembered corpse. I wasn't a psychopath like Lydia Vale. I couldn't swallow that. Besides me, there was one other person desperately resisting the meal. "Sir, why haven't you started eating?" The butler walked over to the chef and leaned down slightly as if concerned. "Is the food not to your liking? But you prepared these dishes yourself. Surely you should enjoy them the most." The chef trembled violently, fear and despair written all over him. "I can't eat. Please, I don't want to eat human flesh. Please spare me." The butler's voice turned glacial, as if frost spilled from his mouth and froze the chef in place. "Are you refusing the master's goodwill?" The chef had reached his breaking point. He clutched his head and muttered in agony. "I'll do anything else. Anything. Just don't make me eat human flesh. Please." Before he could finish, the black smoke from the butler's ears shot toward his face. In the blink of an eye, the chef's face was devoured. As the writhing mass of tiny tentacles continued consuming him, his head was stripped completely. No flesh, no blood, not even brain matter remained. Moments later, the black tendrils withdrew back into the butler. In the chef's chair sat only a clean white skeleton. The butler spoke calmly. "If you refuse to eat what the master has thoughtfully prepared, then you may only become food for Rose Villa." Across the table, the muscular man forced food into his mouth, his face twisted in misery. In complete contrast, Lydia Vale ate happily, as if thoroughly enjoying the lunch. She even carefully gnawed every rib clean, leaving nothing behind. Sensing my gaze, she turned her head, wiping grease from her lips. "Sister, why are you looking at me?" I stared at her for a long moment, then said evenly, "You still have food on your teeth." Her smile froze. For the first time, I saw her expression crack. She quickly turned back and resumed eating. When lunch ended, she rubbed her rounded stomach and stood up. Just then, Lily approached her with the nursery rhyme book in hand. "Sister, can you read this rhyme to me?" Lydia Vale's expression shifted slightly. When she looked at me again, the sweet smile returned. "Sister, you're her tutor. Shouldn't you be the one reading it?" "I can't read," I replied calmly. She choked on her words. Handing the book back to Lily, she said sweetly, "Lily, be good. We just finished eating. It's not time for studying." Why don't you go upstairs and take a nap?" Lily opened her mouth to protest, but a system announcement echoed through the hall, ordering us to gather in the living room. It seemed the nursery rhyme would remain unread. After Lily left, I looked at Lydia Vale thoughtfully. "You seem very familiar with this NPC's daily routine." She shrugged and stood up casually. "Aren't all children like that?" I watched her retreating figure, my expression darkening. Her problem wasn't just that she understood the NPC's habits. More importantly, when Lily spoke to her alone, she showed no fear at all. It was as if she didn't care about the consequences of angering an NPC. And if she wasn't afraid of Lily, then leaving the tutor bracelet for me had only one possible motive. She wanted me dead. My eyes darkened. For the first time, the thought of killing her rose clearly in my mind. In the living room, the puppets showed no reaction to the chef's disappearance. They simply began announcing round 2 of the game. Round 2, game introduction. The master of Rose Villa has prepared a grand ball. Players will dance with the master and the mistress. Rules. 1. Including the 3 players, there are a total of 25 male dancers and 25 female dancers. Players must proactively choose their own partners. Players may not choose each other. 2. The ball lasts 2 hours and consists of 10 dances. Before each dance, players must choose a new partner. 3. The master and mistress love each other deeply. They cannot tolerate dancing with anyone else. If a player accidentally chooses either of them, they will face the master's wrath. Choose carefully. If you anger the master, the consequences will be severe. Hehehe. As soon as the puppet finished speaking, the scene shifted. Daylight faded into night. Lights gathered into a glowing circle in the center of the hall, transforming it into a dance floor. A massive black grand piano appeared on a raised platform to the left. Its keys moved on their own, playing a flowing melody. 47 masked dancers stood waiting in the center, among them the master and mistress. Now I understood why we could accidentally choose them. Every dancer wore identical attire. The men wore black tailcoats. The women wore long black gowns. Each wore a white mask covering the entire face, leaving only 2 small holes for the eyes. From appearance alone, no one could be distinguished. Moreover, the male dancers were identical in height and build. If I wasn't mistaken, they were likely clones of the master. So this was the difficulty of this round. Among 24 identical men, I had to identify the master and avoid choosing him across 10 dances. Finding one specific individual among indistinguishable copies, that was nearly an unsolvable problem. The first dance is about to begin. Players, please step forward and choose your partners. I walked to the center. Only then did I notice subtle differences. The male dancers wore bow ties with different patterns. The female dancers wore distinct brooches. But that still didn't reveal who the master was. No clues. The first round had to be random. I pointed at a male dancer casually. Fortunately, not the master. Lydia Vale and the muscular man made their choices as well. The remaining dancers paired among themselves. Music rose. The first dance began. As long as we chose correctly, no danger would be triggered. So while dancing, I observed the other pairs carefully. The puppet would not create a round based purely on luck. There had to be logic. One by one, I studied them. The first dance ended, then the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. No incidents. Yet I still hadn't identified the master. Anxiety began creeping in. Partners could not be repeated, which meant my pool of safe choices shrank with each dance. The probability of selecting the master increased. If I couldn't identify him soon, I would die. There was another problem. I hadn't eaten lunch. Combined with continuous dancing, my stamina was draining rapidly. After each dance, we had 5 minutes of rest. There was a refreshment area. The muscular man and Lydia Vale had eaten human flesh at lunch. They showed no hesitation now. I refused. Hunger gnawed at my mind. My thoughts slowed. My focus wavered. I bit down hard on my tongue. If this continued, I might truly die here. 6th selection. I stared at the male dancers. Previously, I tried identifying the master by observing whether any man consistently paired with the same woman, assuming that if no one chose him, he would always dance with the mistress. But that method required intense concentration and memory. In my current weakened state, impossible. I closed my eyes, recalled the rule. The master and mistress love each other deeply. They cannot accept dancing with others. Love each other deeply. I opened my eyes. A faint smile touched my lips. I had an idea. Suddenly, not far from me, the muscular man had just chosen his partner. The female dancer before him erupted in fury. Her body expanded grotesquely. Her head swelled, cracking the mask and revealing a distorted, enraged face covered in black tentacles. They burst from her senses and coiled around him, lifting him into the air. He had chosen the mistress. He struggled violently, but his bulging muscles were useless against countless tendrils. Screams tore through the hall. Tiny hands crawled across his body, biting and shredding. Blood and chunks of flesh rained down. His body seemed to melt apart. It happened in seconds. Then, the mistress returned to normal. Her gown reformed, her mask reset. She blended back among the female dancers, and all the brooches on the women's dresses vanished. I could no longer identify her. The muscular man was gone, as if he had never existed. I took a slow breath, then pointed to a male dancer wearing a white bow tie. From memory, across previous dances, his partners had always varied. Low probability of being the master. Music resumed. This time I didn't observe individuals. I widened my gaze across the entire dance floor. I was looking for a pair whose movements were perfectly synchronized while dancing. The game rules were never meaningless. The detail that the master and mistress loved each other deeply had to be an important hint. It wasn't just a warning to avoid choosing them. The real meaning was, my gaze locked onto one couple. Compared to the others, their movements were completely synchronized. So synchronized it was as if only one person was dancing. Moreover, if I remembered correctly, in every previous dance, they had always been paired with each other. Never once had they changed partners. The master and mistress loved each other too much. Even their steps had to match perfectly. This was the true hint hidden in the rules. My eyes settled on the deep purple bow tie the master was wearing. There were still 4 dances left, but for me, the game had already ended. When the puppet officially announced the end of round 2, Lydia Vale stood beside me, smiling. "You're really lucky, sister. You survived." I suppressed the gnawing hunger in my stomach and replied coldly, "If I died before you, that would be rather boring." She suddenly leaned close, her lips nearly brushing my ear. Her voice was sweet and soft, yet laced with hidden amusement. "In the final round, who do you think will die? You or me?" After saying that, she stepped back. Her eyes curved into a strange crescent shape, as if she were eagerly anticipating one of our deaths. At that moment, all the dancers on the floor disappeared, including the master and mistress of the villa. The hall fell silent. Only the 2 of us remained. The puppet stood at the center of the hall and glanced at my hand resting over my stomach. "Player Evelyn Hart, you appear to be in a state of hunger. Before round 3 begins, you have 30 minutes of rest. You may visit the refreshment area." "No need." My expression remained cold, my voice emotionless. I'm a picky eater. The puppet's eyes rolled up and down twice, as if recalling something. "I remember now. You barely ate during this game." 30 minutes passed quickly. The dense night surrounding us abruptly shifted back into daylight. Time inside the game clearly did not follow reality. It bent to fit the narrative. Congratulations to the 2 players who have advanced to round 3. Complete the final task and survive, and you may return home. Game introduction, round 3. This morning, the mistress discovered that the brooch she wore at the ball has gone missing. It is a token of love gifted by the master. She is furious and believes one of the guests stole it. Your task is to find the brooch. Rules: the brooch is hidden in one of the villa's rooms. Search carefully. Doors ending in the number 9 are forbidden areas. Opening them will result in terrible consequences. The player who finds the brooch and brings it to the villa's main entrance wins and may leave. Violence between players is not prohibited. There is no time limit. If the brooch is not found, players will be trapped here forever. So round 3 was a one-on-one game. Only one of us, Lydia Vale or I, could win. And the loser trapped forever, or devoured by the villa. I didn't have time to dwell on that. Finding the brooch before Lydia Vale, that was all that mattered. The villa had 4 floors. The first floor was the grand hall. The remaining 3 floors each contained 20 rooms, numbered 1 to 20. That meant each floor had 2 forbidden rooms, numbers ending in 9, room 9, and room 19. I began searching from the second floor. They were all guest rooms, identical in layout. Simple. I searched rooms 201 through 208. Nothing. When I stood before room 209, a thought surfaced. On floors 2, 3, and 4, there were 6 forbidden rooms in total. If I simply avoided them, I would eliminate 6 possibilities. That reduced difficulty. Was it really that simple? I stared at the handle of room 209. Suddenly, the door creaked open slightly. A thin sliver of dim light spilled out. The gap was too narrow to see inside clearly. Yet I had a distinct feeling. The brooch was in there. A voice echoed in my mind. Go in. Take a look. Maybe you'll find the brooch and leave. Without realizing it, my hand had gripped the doorknob. The voice grew louder, more urgent. Step inside. I looked at the door for a long moment, then slammed it shut. So this was the trap. The forbidden rooms were like beautiful Venus flytraps, tempting players inside, devouring them whole. But I was born without curiosity. Trying to lure me? Pointless. While I searched the second floor, Lydia Vale was on the 4th. After clearing the entire floor without success, I glanced upward toward where she still moved. An idea formed. The room numbers were engraved on small wooden plaques. They weren't fixed permanently. They could be removed. So I switched them, all of them. Room 20 swapped with room 1. Room 19 swapped with room 2. And so on. When I finished, room 202 was actually room 2019. Room 2012 was actually room 209. The forbidden rooms couldn't tempt me. And a psychopath like Lydia Vale wouldn't be easily lured either. So I would create a different trap. She had tried to kill me before. I had no reason to show mercy. Besides, I was never a good person to begin with. When we met again on the 3rd floor, Lydia Vale looked completely at ease. She skipped toward me, her eyes curved like crescent moons. Sister, have you found the brooch yet? I looked at her without expression. If I had, I'd already be gone instead of standing here talking to you. She let out an exaggerated sigh, then smiled again. You're so heartless. I thought you wouldn't bear to leave me. I wouldn't leave you, you know. Even if I found the brooch, I'd still want to stay here. She tilted her head slightly. Watching you tear through room after room, only to be disappointed every time. Though she was still smiling, her voice turned ice cold, the sweetness inside it like syrup frozen into a blade. So tell me, do you think I've found the brooch? At last, the venomous snake shed its rabbit's skin, revealing its forked tongue and fangs. I suddenly laughed, a trace of resentment in my voice. When we were searching for the invitation cards, I already realized how skilled you are. If we fought head-on, I wouldn't be your match. But compared to forcing me to guess like this, wouldn't you enjoy it more if you had placed the brooch right in front of me, letting me stare at it, longing yet powerless? The fact that you didn't do that only proves you haven't found it. Am I right? The snake clicked her tongue regretfully. Oh my, big sister, why did you see through me so quickly? That's no fun at all. I watched her coldly as she descended to the second floor. After searching room 2011, she stopped in front of room 202. The door labeled 202 was, in truth, room 2019. Because the numbering on the plaques had never been perfectly aligned from left to right, she didn't notice my switch. I smiled faintly as she pulled the door open. In an instant, black air burst from inside, accompanied by horrifying screams. A monstrous figure lunged out. Its entire body was covered in scales. Fragments of last night's ballroom gown still clung to it. On its head remained a half-distorted human face. It was the mistress. The dimples on Lydia Vale's cheeks were still clearly visible. Before she could react, the mistress's arm seized her. That shriveled arm, long and blackened like a charred branch, coiled around Lydia Vale's body again and again, dragging her into the darkness. Only then did I realize it wasn't that Lydia Vale failed to react. From beginning to end, she had shown no fear. Her smile never disappeared. Just before the mistress crushed her skull, Lydia Vale lifted her head and smiled at me. Her lips moved slightly. "Big sister. Next time, don't trick me." The next second, half of her head and her left cheek were bitten off. The mistress chewed hungrily and retreated back into the room. But with sharp eyes, I noticed something. As she chewed, something glittering fell from her mouth. When the door finally closed, I rushed forward and picked it up. The brooch. Lydia Vale's death stirred nothing in me. But the cruelty of this game, that did. The key to clearing this round was not one-on-one combat, not merely avoiding forbidden rooms. It was sacrifice. Only by letting one player be devoured by the mistress in the forbidden room could the brooch be obtained. But the one who died wasn't me, so no matter how brutal it was, it had nothing to do with me. Holding the brooch, I walked toward the villa's main entrance. The puppet's voice echoed in my mind. "Congratulations, player Evelyn Hart. You have successfully cleared the survival game at Rose Villa. You will now be returned home." I opened my eyes and found myself lying in my own bed. The alarm clock on my nightstand was still frozen at the moment, just before I had gone to sleep and entered the game. The second hand ticked steadily, as if nothing had happened. 2 days later, I saw several news reports on my phone. A couple had drowned at the beach 2 days ago. They had ignored lifeguard warnings and swum into deep waters. A chef at a 5-star hotel had locked himself inside an oven and burned to death. A veteran fitness trainer at a gym in South City had been killed by a falling weight plate while instructing a client. All 3 incidents had occurred 2 days ago. In the photos accompanying the reports, every one of them was someone I had seen in the game. But there was no news about Lydia Vale. She had definitely died in the game. So why was there no report? Had her death in the real world been so ordinary that it wasn't worth mentioning? While I was still thinking about it, a message arrived on my phone. "Dear player Evelyn Hart, once again, congratulations on successfully clearing the survival game at Rose Villa. We greatly admire your sharp mind, calm reactions, and steady psychological resilience. You are cordially invited to join the Winners Club 2 months from now. Here, you will meet other outstanding players like yourself. We believe you will create even more exciting games together. Please note, this invitation is mandatory. Invitees may not refuse unless they die in an accident." I tossed my phone aside and let out a long sigh. Surviving a game like that was more exhausting than working a full-time job. I honestly felt like collapsing on the spot. What I didn't know was, while I was troubled by the new invitation, a heated argument was unfolding inside Rose Villa. This is the face I specifically requested the puppet to create according to Eastern aesthetics. How could you ruin it like this? Wasn't eating my body enough? On the sofa in the living room sat a woman whose body looked as though it had been crushed repeatedly by a steamroller. She stared into a mirror and screamed at the figure opposite her. The left half of her face was hollow. The right half of her head hung loosely, attached by only a thin strip of skin. Yet if one looked closely, countless tiny hands were busily repairing her wounds. The progress was slow, but her shattered body was indeed gradually regenerating. "Stop making a scene, Lydia Vale," the butler said lazily, pouring himself a glass of red wine and leaning against the bar. "Losing to a human player is humiliating enough. Don't embarrass yourself further." "Shut up." Lydia Vale turned her remaining half-face toward him, glaring and gritting her teeth. "Why didn't you force her to eat that corpse at lunch? I suspect you deliberately went easy on her." The puppet, who had been silent all this time, suddenly sighed, its voice filled with helplessness. "That's enough, darling. You sneaked into the game behind my back and cost me an excellent player. I haven't even settled that score with you yet." "You mean that girl?" the mistress scoffed, stepping forward. "True love is intoxicating, but she chose the wrong man. Sooner or later she would have been destroyed. No great loss." She paused, then pointed behind her. "But what about this one?" In the corner of the room sat Lily, hugging her head, eyes empty. "Teacher is gone. She doesn't need me anymore. I really am a stupid child. My existence has no meaning. I'm useless." The puppet walked over, placed a hand on Lily's head, and took a deep breath. "She's been mentally contaminated by Evelyn Hart." "What?" Everyone present was shocked. "She's just a human. How could she contaminate us?" Lydia Vale's voice cracked as she shouted. The puppet scratched its head, rarely showing remorse. "My fault. When I created Lily under the Supreme God's instructions, I fully replicated the cognitive patterns of an Eastern human child. Being influenced by someone as intelligent and cold as Evelyn Hart wasn't impossible. The mistress grimaced in disgust. Deal with it quickly. Even if she's only a scripted character, I refuse to keep such a pathetic child. If the Supreme God finds out, we'll all be punished. The puppet nodded. Without hesitation, it crushed Lily's head in its hand. And one more thing, it said coldly, lifting its gaze to Lydia Vale, whose body was now more than halfway restored. From now on, no more sneaking into games and disrupting the process. If it happens again, no matter who it is, the outcome will be the same as Lily. Fine, Lydia Vale muttered irritably. Being a player is too restrictive anyway. I couldn't even use my full abilities. Boring. Her voice lowered, dark and heavy. Next time, arrange for me to be an NPC. I want to face Evelyn Hart directly. She dared to trick me. I will kill her. She licked her lips, recalling the delicious taste of human brain. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please like this video and subscribe to support our channel so that I can bring more stories like this to you.